People want to know more about the places they might move to, where they can find communities that feel like home, where they can enjoy the food they love, or even just be near the cultural vibe that suits them. So today, we're tackling the top 10 whitest states in the US and discussing how these states have a history that might make some feel less than welcome. Now, don't get it twisted. This isn't about calling out anyone or stirring the pot. It's about diving into the facts and looking at how the history of these states has shaped their current demographics. You'll be surprised at some of the stats and the stories behind these places. Trust me, you won't want to miss number 1. It's a real eye-opener. So, before we jump in, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more content like this. We promise to keep bringing you videos based on the topics you want to see. Ready? Let's get into it. Number 10. Nebraska. Nebraska. The state that gave us Kool-Aid, Warren Buffett, and more corn than anyone ever asked for. If you've never been to Nebraska, imagine a giant beige pancake with occasional cows and a whole lot of people named Oliver. At 88.1% white, Nebraska isn't just a little white, it's aggressively white. If whiteness were a competitive sport, Nebraska would be that guy who trains for the office 5K like it's the Olympics. The state's European roots run deep, with Germans, Irish, and Scandinavians settling here back in the day. And guess what? Their descendants never left. They just kept reproducing at a steady rate, like responsible homeowners maintaining their lawns. Black folks in Nebraska are about as rare as a mountain in the state. Not saying they don't exist, but if you're black and show up in some small town, don't be surprised if folks look at you like you just walked into the wrong family reunion. The stares last just a little too long, the questions are a little too personal, and suddenly, you're feeling like you're in a Jordan Peele movie. And let's talk about nightlife. If you're looking for a club that isn't just playing country remixes and 80s rock, good luck. Nebraska's idea of going out is tailgating at a University of Nebraska football game, where the sea of red in the stands is only outmatched by the lack of diversity. I once asked a bartender in Omaha if they had Hennessy, and she looked at me like I'd asked if they serve alien blood. Would Nebraska tell black folks they can't live there? Probably not. But will they make you feel like you shouldn't? Well, let's just say the welcome wagon might have a "Don't Tread on Me" bumper sticker. Number 9. Montana. Montana's nickname is Big Sky Country, but they forgot to mention that the culture is about as wide open as a small-town Walmart at 2 a.m., full of questionable choices and mostly empty space. With an 88.9% white population, Montana is the state where if you see another black person, you both give each other that universal "I see you" nod, because you know you're outnumbered worse than a single Popeyes in the middle of a Chick-fil-A convention. Historically, Montana was settled by Italians, Germans, and British cattle ranchers who built a rugged, self-reliant state. Translation: they like their coffee black, their beer warm, and their neighbors to look like they could have fought in the Revolutionary War. Black folks in Montana aren't necessarily unwelcome. It's more like you're unexpected. You ever walked into a party and instantly knew you weren't on the guest list? That's Montana for you. It's not like they're rude, but they will stare at you just long enough for it to get weird. Fun fact: the biggest city in Montana, Billings, has about 117,000 people, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a soul food restaurant. Ask for hot sauce at a restaurant here, and they'll hand you ketchup with a straight face. If you love the outdoors, Montana has beautiful mountains, great fishing, and some of the best hiking trails in the country. Just don't expect to see a lot of people who look like you while you're out there. Unless you count bears. And trust me, the bears are more welcoming than some of the folks at the local diner. Number 8. Utah. Utah is so white that if it were a food, it'd be plain oatmeal with a side of Wonder Bread. With a 90.6% white population, this place isn't just a white state, it's the white state. If you don't believe me, go to Salt Lake City and ask a random person what they think about seasoning. Spoiler, they don't. Let's be real, Utah's whiteness is no accident. This is the land of the Mormons, and Mormons have been keeping things very uniform since Brigham Young and his crew rolled up in 1847. These were British, Canadian, Danish, and Norwegian settlers who took one look at the Utah desert and thought, This looks like a great place to start a religious movement. The thing about Utah is that it's not hostile to black people. It's just confused by us. Walk into a gas station outside of Salt Lake City and you'll get the friendliest, yet most suspicious, hello of your life. It's like they're excited to see you, but also wondering if they should call their HOA. If you ever find yourself in Utah, just know that the odds of finding good barbecue are lower than a caffeine-free soda in a Mormon household. But hey, if you like clean streets, safe neighborhoods, and an endless supply of white people named Chad, Utah might be for you. Number 7. Iowa. If America had a reset button for culture, it would be located somewhere in Iowa. With a 90.6% white population, this is the state where people still think Taco Bell is exotic cuisine. Back in the 1840s, Iowa got hit with an influx of Scandinavian, Dutch, German, and Irish settlers. And apparently their descendants decided to never leave. You ever seen one of those small-town Hallmark Christmas movies? That's Iowa, except there's no Hollywood diversity hire in the background to make things look progressive. The closest thing Iowa has to diversity is its county fairs, where the only thing darker than the crowd is the deep-fried Oreos. Ask a random Iowan if they've ever met a black person, and they'll probably say, "Sure, there was a guy on my high school basketball team once." Now, Iowa folks aren't rude. They're just Iowa. They'll be extra nice to you in a way that makes you wonder if they're secretly trying to recruit you for a church function. If you ever visit, get ready for lots of casseroles, friendly but slightly awkward conversations, and absolutely no good soul food. Number 6. Wyoming. Wyoming, with 92.5% white of its population, is essentially where you go if you want to experience the Wild West, but without the wild part. Picture this: endless plains, big skies, and fewer people than a high school football game in a small town. And when I say fewer people, I mean it. It's got one of the least dense populations in the country. So, if you're a black person moving to Wyoming, you're going to feel like the only extra in a Western movie, and everyone's really paying attention to what you're doing. The state's history is mostly a mishmash of British, German, Italian, and Basque settlers. And it wasn't until the late 1800s that things got a little more varied, with folks from all over looking to stake their claim on the open land. But here's the catch: diversity didn't really stick like it did in other parts of the country. So while Wyoming is lovely in its own rugged way, mountain ranges, national parks, and plenty of opportunities for solo hikes, you won't be elbow to elbow with people of different backgrounds. Instead, you'll be elbow deep in your 4th cup of coffee at a local diner where everyone's been wearing the same boots for 10 years. Now, I have to say, Wyoming is beautiful. Its mountains will make you feel like you're living in a postcard, and the air is as fresh as a crisp apple in autumn. But the whole everyone knows everyone vibe can feel more like everyone knows only themselves when it comes to diversity. Being black in Wyoming isn't about overt hostility, no. It's more about being the new person who's constantly getting asked questions that might sound a little misinformed. Like, so do you, have a lot of family back east? And what's it like being from a big city? Expect a lot of curious stares that could either be curiosity or confusion. Let's talk about the food. Wyoming does food in a way that says, we eat meat, potatoes, and things that go well with meat. Spicy food? Yeah, that's about as exotic as they get with heat. Anything beyond black pepper might be considered foreign. If you show up with a batch of fried chicken that's actually seasoned, be prepared for someone to ask what part of the country you're from and whether or not it's safe to eat. But hey, that's part of the charm. Wyoming doesn't mess around with frills. Everything's straightforward, including their idea of what constitutes spicy. At the end of the day, Wyoming is a beautiful, quiet, and peaceful state. But not exactly the best choice if you're looking for diversity or a place where people of different backgrounds are actively living together. If you enjoy peace, outdoor adventures, and the occasional cowboy poetry festival, Wyoming might be for you. Just don't be surprised when you're the only one at the rodeo wearing a t-shirt that says I3 Diversity. Wear a big smile, be prepared for the "so where are you from?" question on repeat, and maybe bring a few spices with you. You might just be the spark of flavor they've been missing. Number 5. Idaho, with its 93% white population, is basically the land of potatoes and, well, more potatoes. But don't let that fool you. There's a little more to this state than spuds. Sure, Idaho has some of the most picturesque mountain views and the scenery will wow you, but its diversity game is a bit of a missed opportunity. If you walk into a local diner here, be prepared to get asked, "So where are you really from?" The local assumption is that you're probably just passing through, since you don't exactly blend in with the crowd. Settled primarily by English and Northern European immigrants, Idaho has maintained that predominantly white demographic for centuries. From the early settlers seeking out a low governing tax haven, Idaho has grown into a place where white folks seem to thrive. And by thrive, I mean they thrive at mountain biking, rafting, and picking their own apples in orchards that look straight out of a Hallmark movie. But diversity? You're about as likely to find a food truck with Caribbean jerk chicken as you are to find a taco shop run by someone who's actually Mexican. As a black person moving here, don't expect to be treated badly. Idahoans are generally really nice in that overly friendly, just pass me your credit card and I'll have that ready in a sec kind of way. The problem is, they might be just a little too nice, like you're some sort of curious wildlife they've never encountered. Imagine walking into a coffee shop where everyone is friendly, but somehow still thinks you're a unicorn that wandered off the farm. Questions about your background will be peppered in ways that make you realize they mean well, but they've been living in their Idaho bubble for a long time. The local food scene here, despite being known for potatoes, is shockingly lacking in flavor diversity. Sure, they've got a mean baked potato and a few trendy farm-to-table restaurants, but good luck finding someone who knows what seasoning is beyond salt and pepper. Idahoans' spicy experience is probably limited to the mildest of salsas and what they think is hot sauce. And if you want some real heat, you might have to introduce it yourself. Just remember to take it easy on the cayenne pepper. Idahoans might look at you like you've just brought fire into their world. In the end, Idaho isn't a bad place. It's beautiful, it's quiet, and it's one of the best states for outdoor activities. But if you're black and hoping to find a thriving community, you might have better luck on a trip to one of the big cities. Just come prepared with some knowledge about potatoes, a good story about your hometown, and maybe some seasoning to help the locals expand their culinary horizons. And remember, if someone offers you a spicy potato dish, don't expect fireworks. Number 4. New Hampshire. New Hampshire is 93.1% white, and if you've ever been here, you know the state has one of the most aggressively normal vibes in America. Picture a place where diversity is considered Taco Bell's attempt at fusion cuisine, and you've got New Hampshire in a nutshell. If you walk into a room here, you'll probably be greeted by an army of North Face jackets and people who unironically use the word wicked to describe everything from weather to pizza. Historically, New Hampshire was settled by the English, Irish, and Scottish, and they've managed to maintain that demographic charm through the centuries. It's a beautiful state full of trees, lakes, and ski resorts, but the diversity? Not so much. You'll be the first to tell anyone here that soul food doesn't mean plain spaghetti with marinara, and that seasoning is a skill, not a crime. But hey, at least the air is fresh, and the lakes are crystal clear. If you're black and thinking about moving to New Hampshire, prepare yourself for a lot of well-meaning, slightly awkward conversations. The people here are nice. Overly nice, in fact. They'll ask you about your heritage with a level of intensity that suggests they expect you to have all the answers about every black culture ever. So what's the difference between Caribbean and African American food? Might be one of the questions they ask while offering you a tasteless bowl of what they think is gumbo. Spoiler, it's not. The upside is that New Hampshire's small towns are pretty safe and the public schools are great. It's just that, well, you might be the only black person at the PTA meeting, unless there's a new wave of families moving in who all happen to love ski trips and apple picking. You'll be treated with a polite curiosity that sometimes borders on overly personal. "Oh, you're from where? What's it like there?" They mean well, but it feels like you've just entered an unspoken documentary about what it's like to be the only one in New Hampshire. But let's be real, New Hampshire is gorgeous. If you like scenic drives through the mountains, hiking, and watching a lot of people get really into town hall meetings, you'll fit in. Just don't expect a thriving black community, or for anyone to know what jollof rice is. Just bring your own seasoning. And if you have a good recipe, for the love of all that is holy, share it with the locals. They might not know what they're missing, but they'll thank you later. Number 3. West Virginia. West Virginia is 93.5% white, and if that number sounds high, just wait until you actually visit. This is a place where the Walmart is the most diverse spot in town, and even that is a stretch. You know how some states at least have pockets of diversity? Yeah, West Virginia missed that memo. Cities here don't really have melting pots. They have one big casserole of the same ingredients that have been passed down for generations. Historically, West Virginia was settled by the Scottish and Irish, and you can hear it in the local accents. This state has deep roots in coal mining, folk music, and an unshakable commitment to drinking Mountain Dew like it's a daily vitamin. The culture is rugged, proud, and deeply traditional, which can be both charming and mildly concerning if you're not from around here. Black folks in West Virginia aren't unwelcome, but let's just say you won't find a thriving black community unless you count the one uncle who moved here for a job and now refuses to leave. When it comes to diversity, West Virginia is basically a time capsule. This is the kind of place where folks will stare at you just a little too long before deciding whether to be friendly or pretend they don't see you. And let's not even start on the Confederate flags. Yes, West Virginia was literally part of the Union, but you wouldn't know that from all the misplaced Southern pride. You'll see Heritage Not Hate bumper stickers on trucks that have definitely never left the state. That being said, people here are generally friendly. The moment you prove you can handle a shot of homemade moonshine or fake excitement over a high school football game, you'll fit right in. West Virginians love to talk. And once they accept you, you'll have more conversations about hunting, coal mining, and old family recipes than you ever thought possible. Just don't expect them to try any of your family recipes. Seasoning is still considered a bold lifestyle choice here. So, should you move to West Virginia if you're black? It depends. If you like stunning mountain views, cheap housing, and a very simple life, it could work. Just be prepared to answer a lot of questions about where you're really from and why you don't hunt. And if you ever find yourself in a small town bar with too many American flags and not enough cell service, buddy, finish your drink and get back on the road. Number 2. Vermont. At 94.2% white, Vermont is so overwhelmingly Caucasian that even the snow feels like it's part of the local culture. This is the state where maple syrup and white people are the two main exports, and both are absolutely everywhere. If you ever wondered what a state would look like if it was run entirely by Patagonia-wearing craft beer enthusiasts, congratulations, you found it. Vermont was settled by the English, Irish, and Scottish, and let me tell you, they never left. You won't find a long history of diversity here because, well, nobody else showed up. If you're black, you won't necessarily face hostility, but you will be treated like a rare Pokemon. Walk into a small-town coffee shop, and the locals will stare. Not in a mean way, but in a, wow, I've only ever seen one of you on TV kind of way. Vermonters are aggressively nice. They're polite, progressive, and very into sustainability. But make no mistake, they are deeply curious about your presence. If you move here, expect at least one person to ask, "So what brings you to Vermont?" with the same energy as if you had just crash-landed from another planet. And yes, someone will touch your hair without asking. Just accept it and move on. Food-wise, hope you like kale. Vermont is big on organic, farm-to-table everything. If you're looking for soul food, you'd have better luck finding a Bigfoot riding a moose. The closest thing to seasoned food is whatever spicy mustard they put on their artisanal sandwiches. Would Vermont ever ban black people? Of course not. But if you do decide to move here, be prepared to be the only person in a 50-mile radius with melanin. On the bright side, at least the air is fresh, the crime rate is low, and you'll never struggle to find a good IPA. Number 1. Maine, the whitest of the white. And coming in at number 1, we have Maine, the state that is 94.4% white and damn proud of it. Maine is so white that even its largest city, Portland, is 91% white. Imagine a place where the big city feels like a Whole Foods parking lot. Congrats, you've imagined Maine. Historically, Maine was settled by the English and Scottish, and somehow nobody else ever showed up. This place is famous for lobster, lighthouses, and people who love LL Bean. If you've ever wondered where Patagonia jackets and Subaru Outbacks go to retire, this is the place. Black folks in Maine? Yeah, they exist. Somewhere. But let's be real. If you're black in Maine, people will notice. You'll be the subject of casual curiosity at every coffee shop. People will be very friendly, but also very interested in your entire life story. You might be the only black person some Mainers have ever spoken to in real life. And buddy, they have questions. Now, is Maine dangerous for black people? No, not really. But if you like things like culture, diversity, or not standing out like a sore thumb, this might not be the place for you. But hey, if you like lobster, peaceful small towns, and looking like the Where's Waldo of black folks, Maine's got you covered. So there you have it, the top 10 whitest states in the US where black people are not welcome, or at least heavily monitored. To be clear, most of these states aren't hostile. They're just very white. If you move to any of these places, just be ready for some awkward conversations, a lack of decent barbershops, and a lifetime supply of well-meaning but misguided white folks asking if you've tried skiing. Would I personally recommend moving to any of these states if you're black? Depends on your tolerance for bland food and unsolicited questions about your ancestry. If you enjoyed this list, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you live in one of these states, don't take it personally. Just maybe consider opening a soul food restaurant. Your state needs it.